Hello, it's Richard here from Universus, doing a little deck profile of my favourite new character, which is Rodan from the Godzilla Challenger decks. I think the character's pretty cracked overall, to be honest. He's a 7-hander, 21 health, void and all, giant monster. Enhanced, tenacious, remove the top card of your discard pile. This attack gets +X or -X speed. X equals a printed block modifier of the removed card. Enhance, commit, look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put them back in any order. If you have 4 more attacks in the remove pile, look at the top 4 instead. That's a little bit Eraserhead 1, a little bit Jiro 1. Obviously, he's not as good as those characters. From what I found, just sort of the games I play with him, he's very, very good. So I'm playing this on the Void symbol. I've obviously gone on record saying I'm a bit of a simp for the Void symbol anyway, and I think it is its best symbol. I think there's a good build on air available. I haven't really looked into the all build, not really as appealing. So Rodan's our character. So obviously we're going to be playing quite a defensive build here. The Void symbol does that, and the character itself does that, right? He gets to give free speed and everything, so it's going to end up looking very similar to the old sort of Void Eraserhead decks that we had sort of around last year's Nationals, but obviously with a bunch of the new cards. So rather than starting off with the attacks, we're going to start off with the actions and the assets, because they're some of the most important ones that give a little bit of context, I think, to the choices in both the attacks and foundations. So starting off, we have 4 combined firepower. This card's pretty cracked. If you don't know what it does, it's just an action that, it's a 1 difficulty. Enhanced mill 4, this attack gets +1 damage for each non-foundation milled this way. So, you're giving somewhere between 0 and 4 damage to every attack. But the important thing is, A, it doesn't count towards progressive difficulty, so you can just load these up on an attack and not affect your string. The second is that whenever you remove a card to pay for a cost, as long as it's in your discard pile, you can trigger this to then play this during the attack. Rodan turns that on face, so you can always have access to all of your combined firepowers in your discard pile every turn, every attack, as and when you want them. And the other important thing is the phrasing, you may try to play this card during this attack, also counts as a block. So you can block with this as you remove something. You always remove something for negative speed on Rodan generally. It means you always have this 3 mid block accessible to you. Again, very similar to that Eraserhead playstyle of always having those erasers to block with. Obviously not as good. It's a 3 mid, not a 1 mid breaker 1, but in a lot of ways that was somewhat too good on Eraserhead. So just very, very good. I would probably always play the 4. I could see an argument for cutting 1 and just going down to 3, just because you don't really want them clogging up your hand. You just want to be using them as extra cards, so extra damage in your attacks, and then extra blocks during your opponent's turn. So you don't really want to have them. You don't really want to be drawing them. You want to be checking them and having them there to use during the game. So I could see going to a 3rd, cutting a 4th one, just going down to 3. But I've been happy with 4, just to always have them. Playing a singular Genkai's Guidance, not an effect I want to load up on too much. Maybe I'll play a 2nd in the sideboard. I'm happy to have the 1 just as an emergency button. We are a 21 healther. We do have the 7 hand size, so we've got a bit of room for extra sort of non-foundation, non-attack cards. Genkai's is very powerful. Just to fling out one of their attacks that we just don't want to deal with. We're drawing lots of cards. We can always rebuild after it. So again, happy with the 1, but as you'll see with a lot of this deck, it's a bit of a work in progress, and a lot of the card choices are very personal choice as to your personal preferences. So there's a lot of changes you can make. I think there's probably about 69 cards currently. I'd say there's probably about maybe 40 that I'd almost say are kind of locks in terms of what you have in the deck, and then the rest you can sort of flavour to your own choices and your own testing and the metagame you're expecting. But yeah, so not an essential in the list, but I like having just the singular Genkai's as like an escape button. Assets, we're playing 3. So we're playing a single cape and 2 knots flask. I'll get to this in a second. Again, singular cape. Cape's very powerful, similar to the singular Genkai's, just having one of this effect just to say no to something. Again, I could see playing a second in the sideboard. I could see moving this to the sideboard entirely. Again, it's always nice to have these sort of escape valve type effects, something the void symbol does very, very well. So I definitely like having just that one in the deck. You can't go too heavy on these sort of things, the non-foundations, but again, I like having the one, especially when we've got Knots Flask. I'm running 2. I think this is wrong. I think I should be definitely running the 3rd, which could just be, that cape being the 3rd, or find another cut somewhere. I could even hear an argument for a 4th, to be honest. This card is so very good in this character. Does it's a 2 mid, so a nice block. Obviously not something we especially need with the action. It's 1 difficulty, so very easy to get to sort of weave into build turn to get it onto your stage. The milling to get extra counters is really good for us. Like it's a useful thing to do because it puts these things in our graveyard into our discard pile, so we can then use them. So we want sort of 3 ways of getting these in there to then make have the benefit of them being extra cards we access to during a turn. And the other thing it does is it messes around with damage. So obviously Rodan himself, like he deals with the speed, right? Quite often you can make your attacks unblockable and stuff like that, or just hard to interact with just in terms of how high a speed they are, but doesn't do damage. Void in general as a symbol doesn't really do damage. Knots Flask does. Generally speaking, this is a card that I use for damage reduction. So again, sometimes we run out of cards, we run out of speed affecting things, we run out of foundation to commit during an opponent's attack string, and just being able to turn off an attack by committing 1 or 2 of these, reducing the damage and saying we don't need to deal with that one. We need the defense. We're a 21 health character, we're a 7-hander, so we need it, and Knots Flask is very, very good at this. It's generally a case of I use it always for the damage reduction until I'm just going to kill my opponent, in which case they will get turned sideways to add the 3 damage and then they die. But yeah, I think there definitely should be a 3rd one. Certainly it felt in my testing that the games where I had Knots Flask and the games where I didn't, I could feel the difference significantly. So yeah, there should be a 3rd. I don't know what I'd cut for it at the moment, but I'm just going off the list at the moment, and a lot of this is sort of looking for your opinions and your thoughts. Obviously, talk, either hit me up on Discord or leave some comments on the video and just let me know what your thoughts are. But yeah, Knots Flask definitely has got to a 3. And then we go to our attack lineup. So we'll talk about our main sort of kill card in this deck, and that is repeated 100% smash. So obviously we're playing a bit of a punch package here. This is our kill, really. We can stack our deck with Rodan to make sure that we are at least going to probably check a 5 on this when we go for it. Sometimes you can play it early just as a first in the string, just to poke, get some damage, ready a foundation we've got some value from. We're adding a whole bunch of speed on it. I found we're pretty good at generating momentum to then sort of pump into these things to kill with. And it's a way of kind of going like 2 or 3 attacks deep, even if we're never going to kill them, without necessarily having to commit too hard for it, because this is re-reading everything. And so we've then still got our defense on the opponent's crackback while still then getting a significant amount of damage in. Again, I could see cutting a 4th. I did have it as 3. I went up to 4 just because this is one of our main ways of killing people, just with that EX3, that powerful 3, a really good momentum dump, and is a fairly sort of risk-free attack because of that re-ready effect. We're not playing mono punches, but we're playing a lot, so you're usually going to get 2 or 3 out of the re-ready, and yeah, just obviously stringing these together is great. But yeah, obviously repeated was one of the main kill conditions of those Nationals season last year void decks, and it's I think it's sort of seen a bit of a fall off because we lost a lot of punches with the set 1 rotation, but it's still a cracked card and probably is not seeing as much play as it should do. And I think this deck runs it very, very well. And obviously on the void symbol, the one thing we see usually along with repeated is then the rejuvenating. We're playing 3 of. I think 3 is fine. I could even see cutting it down to a 2. I don't think I'd want the 4th. Obviously really good on defense. as our second block, or free action or something, just to draw 2, gain 2 on the opponent's turn as a block, and it's got the nice 1 mid. And also just as a reasonably free attack as our second attack. We play our first, we make sure we're checking a 5 on it at least. So we're going to commit 1, we get to draw 2 more cards, so we've got plenty to block, plenty to build, we gain a little bit of health. Another way of dumping momentum in the X3 to make sure these hit, which we can then obviously pump up damage-wise with our Knots Flasks, and also our combined firepower. So, we get a lot of free damage out of these, out of the Flasks and the combined firepower, which, like these, with those EX3s, with our speed on face, can really sort of push through the damage that way. The enhance on this, I think we've got like very few ways of triggering it. Obviously, spoiler alert, we're playing Botan's coaching, so that's one way we've got of doing it. That might be the only way in the deck that I can think of. We've got triggering that. Not ideal, hence why I could see cutting us a third, but I'm okay at 3. The sort of other one that goes along with this, we'll get to this and we'll see, is I think one of the best attacks in the deck, and that is Double Fist Immortal Flame. We're just playing 4 of. They're very, very good. Again, we want to generate momentum for these things, for other attacks in our deck, as you'll see. We're quite momentum hungry, actually. So these just being able to, we play this first, we lose 2, we snag our momentum, we then play the rejuve, draw 2, gain that 2 back, right? Is a nice little combo we can do in this. When we've got momentum, it's just 2 attacks in 1. That is free. Obviously, doesn't have a lot of damage, doesn't have a lot of speed, but we give it the speed. Early on, this is almost, as a poke, we're very likely generating 2 momentum out of this card, because we lose 2, generate momentum, we give it 2 to 3 or 4 speed, and we just say it's 4 damage, what are you going to do about it? A lot of opponents will just sit there and take that, so we then effectively generate 2 momentum on that turn, for then a later turn when we come in with these things and it's all of a sudden we're EX6ing something or powerful 6ing something. This card's cracked. It's very, very, very good. And the block modifier as a 3 high ain't great, but actually sometimes good high block modifiers, we want a kind of mixture of good blocks, but also some bad blocks, so we can remove things for high speed, either plus or reduction with Rodan. So it's sometimes a tricky mix, balance to get with him. But yeah, this card's very, very good. It's either as a starter of a string, or just a poke, or just a way of having 2 attacks in 1 later in the game. Really, really, really good. We're playing 2 Double Tornado Fist. This card's actually been pretty solid. Got 1 low block, just to get a couple more low blocks into the attack lineup. Obviously, the bottom enhance to join a card, I don't think anyone's ever triggered ever in their life. But it is, you're always at least getting 4 speed out of it, right? They can't reduce it below that. You're almost always getting into the 6 speed to give it the 2 damage. So it's like a 6 speed for 7 that they have to interact with, or they're just taking a whole bunch to the face. And you really don't ever want to play this without echoing it, but sometimes you can as an opener, right? You play this, they have to interact with this, into rejuve, into repeated, it's a punch repeated. But, again, another way of spending our momentum in a positive way to just put a lot of pressure on an opponent. I'm not married to this card, so if if there's something else you wanted to play in this slot, you could, but I think this has been solid enough to sort of merit its inclusion. We are the last then parts of our punch package are 3 rerun fossils. A card I'm a big fan of. Generally speaking, in characters, something like a Mount Lady that can put damage on them and make them threatening. But we can do that. We've got the Knots Fast, we've got the actions. And again, sometimes we just want to poke with this early, get our 3 damage in, chip them down, get our momentum, so that then when we're ready, we're killing them with this. And it's a nice string opener. It's a reasonably, as a 4 diff, it's reasonably risk-free. We can then use our Rodan to sort of cycle through stuff and stack our deck and make sure that the rest of our turn goes well. And also the cycling a card to commit their best defensive piece, like a learning the standards or a spooky, or whatever their best defensive piece, or that we just say no, you're not having it, and then we're going in for the rest of the turn. So again, a very nice opener. It is 3 damage. I could see playing a 4th, but I think 3 is the right number of this, especially with like the 3 high. We don't really want to overload too much on those, and I'm not cutting any double fists for Rewind Throttle. Double fist is far too good. 3 has felt fine. So that's like our little punch package. Enough of a package for Repeaters to do its thing. I know we've got a whole bunch of echoes, but doesn't really matter. Repeated sort of, merits its inclusion here. We've been playing 2 Ice Swords. I don't know about this card in this deck, because in all of the test games I've played, I've never drawn it, or I've never had it in play. It should be good, right? It's a good card, and it has had success. Again, similar to the Rewind Throttle, commits their best piece. Sometimes might nab 2, but it's done 2. And again, another way of dumping momentum for damage, something we sometimes lack. So this being a 10 damage move at like 7-8 speed, very, very good, with stun 1, stun 2 effectively on it. I could see maybe cutting some of these, but I think these are just good enough to merit their inclusion, and I think 2 is fine. I could see maybe trimming 1, but I think 2 of these, Ice Sword's just a very, very good card. Again, another card that I wanted to try out, and I have never really drawn in terms of like the games to see how it's actually performed, is Gravity Beam. My gut says this probably ends up not being good enough, and I end up cutting this for other copies of other cards. One of the new attacks, the idea being, we play it 3rd in our string, and we remove one of their cards, tax their hand, as well as taxing speed and everything, and it's like 7 damage because we're removing cards, like it's 3 damage. Has a bit of deadlock on it. One thing you'll notice in this deck, and just the void symbol in general, is deadlock isn't very good and doesn't appear very often on cards you actually want to play. So having a little something in there that says the word deadlock can be good, but like by the 3rd attack, how good is a stun 3? I don't know. I'm not convinced. Again, I could see probably cutting these for something else. The issue I found is there's too many 5 diffs I want to play and not enough 4 diffs. So yeah, this could well be a one-off and actually end up being the 4th one of these, because these have actually been pretty good. So again, another one of the very down attacks. So multiple bites. So it's a 3 mid-6. If you move a card, draw a card. You always remove a card. This is like a 5 mid-6 and a 4 diff. It's just the freest poke or opener or even finisher, because it's 6 damage. They really have to interact with it at that 6 damage, especially if you start loading stuff on with your actions or Knots Flasks. Just a very, very solid attack that replaces itself in this deck. So yeah, this probably should be this, and maybe we play like a cheeky one of these that sometimes will do the thing and doesn't really matter. This could even be the 4th Rewind Throttle, but block zones. Multiple whites is very good, very solid, and not being a punch doesn't matter. It's good enough to just justify itself in there. So we're playing 23 attacks, I think. 7, 11, 13, 16, 17, 18, 20, 23, yes. So yeah, in a 69 card deck playing 23. I've been pretty happy with this lineup. Obviously, as we talk through, there's some changes I'd probably make. I think this would become this. And I think I'm happy enough with that as it is. There are obviously other attacks you could use in this deck, but I've been happy with this being enough sort of early things we can poke with, and then enough things we can actually kill with to do the thing. And just repeated, easy repeated, right? We all know how good that card is. Our foundation base. So let's look at our zeros. Full both hands coaching. I think it's the best 0-1 void. Turns on rejuvenating splash we need to. Is a way of filtering blocks we need to, or just filtering to draw the attacks or foundations if we need to build on our turn. It's a way of putting our actions in the discard pile so we can then get them for free. It's a way of putting a good block modifier on the top of our discard pile for Rodan. Has a lot going on actually just for a very simple foundation, more than just like a cycle one card would appear. Obviously you're giving an opponent cycle, but it is a 0. But yeah, and a 3 mid is quite good to remove in Rodan, so we're quite happy with that. 2 areas, keeping area safe. A lot of this was just, we've trimmed a lot down, and then we play in terms of our zeros, so we don't play too many. I think Botan's a better mid, so we've just got a little bit of stun hate on here. 2 relaxing role models. It's like the best low block 0 to play. And just, again, some extra damage reduction to go along with our Knots Flask is pretty decent on our 21 health character. So it's fine. It's just a low block on a 0. And similarly, it's a high block on a 0. The new Space Terror, flip for +1 damage. Damage is something we sometimes lack. It's not a great foundation, but it's a high block. It's a 3 high. So, again, removing it with Rodan's pretty good. And it just gives us a bit of extra damage maybe when we need it. So again, it's a very minor effect, but it's a 0. It should be a minor effect. So yeah, we're playing 4, 8, 11 zeros. I found that was sort of enough. We don't want to go too heavy on them. We want our foundations to be relevant and actually have text and do stuff. But you do need to play a certain amount of zeros. So yeah, we've got 11 going on now. One diffs is probably the section I maybe struggled with the most, and a lot of these you'll notice there's going to be a lot of 2-ofs because I was very indecisive as to what I should actually play. And there's definitely a card that I think is missing from this lineup that I want to find room for, and I'm not really sure what should be the cut for it. So we've got 2 quick arrivals, destroy a foundation, get us speed. That's like our way of getting out of deadlock. We've got plenty of other things that can destroy foundations if we need to. Plenty of things like remove costs and so forth. So, but you always want a couple of things to keep yourself out of deadlock. Quick arrivals doing that. Battle for dominance. I'd love room for 4 of these. There isn't. So yeah, rival's turn, flip, remove 1 card from your card pool if you did draw 1 card. A way of keeping our card pool clear on those defensive turns to make sure we're blocking. We need to block everything. We're a 7-handed with 21 health. Battle for Dominance does that. Is very good. Another way of triggering our actions if we need to. Similarly, the incubating. I'd love to fit 4 of these in. It's just effectively a free -1 speed. It's not quite as free, I'd say, as other characters. Because we're constantly removing stuff with our character, because we're milling with Knots Flask, we're milling with our actions, we actually cycle through our deck very quickly. I think I found it rare to not kill my opponent before just cycling at least once. So you don't want to be removing too hard, or else you do run into that risk of decking yourself out. So a couple I think are fine. Again, you could play a 3rd. Shaggy Prodigy was sort of the concession to not playing these. There's just another kind of speed hate with low blocks. Daunting Message was one I wanted to try out because we're only 21 health. Getting down to 10 is pretty sometimes reasonably easy. We do damage ourselves a little bit sometimes. So flip to commit something like is a very powerful effect if you turn it on. I don't know how relevant it is and how needed it is, and I haven't hated it. I've actually quite liked it, but I think this slot should be Fruits of Our Labours as a low block that says the word deadlock on it. I think having that extra deadlock pressure in the deck is needed because sometimes games can go along with this, so you need some ways of punishing your opponent for deadlock. And speaking of which, Practical Studies is one of our main ones, to be honest. So again, some extra speed in our first attack. Really good with those pokes. We want to have that momentum. So there's early things. When we're making like a 7, 8, 9 speed rewind for 2 for 3 damage, the opponent isn't interacting. Your opponent isn't blocking it. So it means you get our momentum we really want for our later turns. Practical Studies helps with that. and just means those first attacks generally always connect. And has the deadlock enhance, to commit to seal a asset or foundation and give +3 speed just to make all our stuff come in. I said it is a commit cost, but we can obviously ready it with Peter if we need it. But one of the better deadlock effects we get on the symbol, there isn't that many, as I've said. And yeah, these should probably be fruits. Just add some more cards that with the word deadlock on it. So that's our ones. And then we come to our twos. We've got 2 Galactimonda, and there's a lot of one-offs here, as you'll see. So we've got 2 Galactic Monster. I think these need to come out. I thought it would be cool to have just some extra commit for damage, and obviously being able to play it from our roof and game pile like the Polite More Spoken. I think it's sort of a meme, to be honest. I don't think we need it. I actually think this should probably be an unexpected hero, and this should be something else maybe. Probably a Can't Escape Me. But yeah, I think these need to come out. I don't think they're good enough. 1 Masho Concealment. Obviously, we don't get to play the Team Masho Enhance, but just having a Foundation cancel, I think, is very important. It's unique, so we're happy enough to play the one-off. Similarly with the Citywide Crisis, resets are good. Citywide Crisis is a good reset. So again, just playing the one-off is fine. And sometimes, if you're taxing their hand on your attack turn, and they try to draw some cards, well, actually, Citywide Crisis says no, you stuff your card for 1 and I'm actually going to kill you this turn. Hacker is really, really good in this character. Again, we've got lots of good ways of generating momentum. Hacker's another good way of spending that to draw those cards when we need it, and also to flip their capes or their own Knots Flasks or whatever other assets they might have in play. And just to draw more blocks, draw more cards on our turn. Sometimes you use it offensively to draw some more cards and get in your kill turn. Sometimes you look at the top 2 Rodan, see 2 attacks, you need some way of drawing them out so you don't check them. Hacker's one way of doing that, right? And sometimes they'll get an attack through and you stagger momentum with Hacker, but very rarely. And also, it is a 4 high on that block zone. You never want to block with it, but really, really good to remove a Rodan. 2 Unexpected Heroes, more speed hate, and sometimes you use it offensively for damage because they ain't blocking anything more and you just flip it for, well, it doesn't matter, I'm just getting it for another 3. And sometimes you commit it, they do their own Botan's coaching, and you can draw another card. But again, it's just, realistically, it's flip -3 speed and then blocking your thing, but that's sort of what we need. We need to block everything as a Simhander. Go similarly along with Spooky. Spooky is just a very powerful effect. Sometimes is good, sometimes does nothing. Hence why it's a one-of. I like having it as a one-of just as an option. I could see playing a second Spooky. He was a very important card in those Eraserhead decks because he was always sort of negging the speed through various things. We are doing that similar thing, especially given I want to put the 3rd one of these in here. Just having a second copy, so we could be playing that here, right? Just having a second option to say, that doesn't hit me, or I'll reduce the speed, I'll then Spooky to like 3 damage, and then I'll not spark it to 0. Especially if if throws start picking up as an option, throws traditionally have been very bad for 7 hand size defensive characters. So just ways of saying actually your throw does 2 damage, I don't care, is really important. So at the very least, I'd probably play a second Spook in the sideboard for when it's very important. Can't Escape Me, just a very good way of just stopping the card draw. I'd love to fit more copies in. Partly it's just finding space for these things, right? I think the Masho could be a Can't Escape Me. I think I'd rather the split, but I'd like to find a way of maybe having a second one in. And also, again, has the word deadlock on it, right? So again, another reason to maybe try and find a second one, room for a second. So I think, these are the cards I think definitely come out. I think I definitely want a 3rd one of these. And then this, I think, is one of these 2 cards. And I think it's probably Can't Escape Me. And then the second Spooky probably in the sideboard. is probably where I'd go with these. But yeah, this card sort of hasn't really felt like it's justified its slot. Like, you never want to commit for the damage because it feels like if the game goes long, victory's sort of inevitable and you don't need to commit for damage. You just don't ever want to do that. Like, commit for +4 if you ever get there is good, but it's just never come up, and I think I'd be more than happy to cut that card. And then we are playing some 3s. So we're playing a single condescending explanation, just as an attack negation, again similar to our singular cape, our singular genkais, just a way of saying no to an attack. We generate momentum reasonably handily, so not a high cost. It is a 3-diff, we can't play loads. I think I prefer playing a singular one of these to, say, a singular like decoy duplicate, because they don't get to draw, and also the attack stays in the card pool, so it's a bit more powerful. It is a 3-diff, but we're not playing huge amounts of them, so I think I'd rather play this over a decoy duplicate and just say, no, it's just flipped. You've still got the progressive, you're not drawing another card. We're then playing 3 Supersonic Flight. This is one of our few sort of purely aggressive foundations. So this is again another 3-diff, so it's an enhanced destroy, change the attack zone to high, it gets +2 speed, +3 damage, and then response after you move it, due to an effect to pay a cost, you draw a card. So obviously you remove it Rodan, you draw a card, and it has a 4 block zone, block mod, so you blow this up, you give an attack +2, +3, you move it to Rodan, give it another 4 speed, draw a card. A nice little combo. I don't think it's actually that needed to play 3 of them. I think I'd rather cut this for something else, and that might be the slot to fit the dots flask in, to be honest. Again, it's just when you're killing them, you're just killing them, and it doesn't really, and just a few extra stats from this doesn't really matter, and it's never something you really want to use early. So I'm not sure on this one whether the 3 is correct or whether a 2 is correct, or whether actually we don't play this card at all. Like, changing it to high doesn't really matter in terms of the zone change, because and actually that's one of the things I'll talk about in a second. But sometimes changing it to high is actually a bad thing, because you do this, you give it all the stats, they then barrier shield and showdown, or airy smiles or something, and actually making it a high in that case was actually a bad thing. And quite a lot of our attacks are high already, so it doesn't really do a lot. But it is a lot of stats on one card, right? We're effectively talking about 6 speed, 3 damage, and a card for the cost of a foundation. It's a pretty good rate. But do we need it, right? And is this not better served to be something else to help us keep alive, knowing that in a longer game we should be favoured? And maybe it should be, say, a second one of these as another sort of attack negation. I think I'd rather the flask at this point, but yeah, I think this is probably the slot for the flask, just off rip. Given I know I want to cut the galactic monsters, and I think I want some other 2 diffs there. But yeah, so that's our foundation lineup. So yeah, we're playing 4 3s. And then a bunch of 2s, and 2s a lot of where our kind of tech pieces lie, and our 1s and 0s. So yeah, the one sort of weakness I found with this attack lineup is that we've got high, we've got a mid, we've got another high, we've got another high, we've got another high, we've got another high, and then we've got some more mids. We're not pressuring low zone at all, which is standard for punches. Punches tend to not do that. But highs are the ones that gets the most punished at the moment in terms of things like showdown, airy smiles, and so forth. And it means your opponent can always, they know they can, once they work it out, they can just build their low blocks. So I'd like maybe somehow to find some sort of low attacks in here, just to say, oh, you didn't keep your low blocks, well, you weren't seeing this coming. But yeah, overall, I've been very happy with this deck. It's played very similarly to how I thought it would. It's very much My style, I think, when it comes to I really gelled with what this deck is doing. In that sort of void control, then eventually I'll kill you, and doing a lot of stuff with the momentum. Like, it's very reminiscent for me from one of my, in terms of just sort of what it's doing in like the play style, to one of my favourite decks, which was back in sort of set 4 format, which was Void Kicks All for One. Just a very similar sort of vibe, at least to me. I just really like the Void symbol, and I think Rodan's cracked. Just being able to say -2, -3 speed, or +2, +3 speed on everything for free, and getting to 0 the top of your deck is cheating, and getting to 0 the top 4 cards of your deck is definitely cheating. So yeah, I think I've talked through the changes I think I would make to the deck just as it stands. I think third, not last, definitely, and maybe even the fourth. The card is very good. I haven't obviously got a sideboard prepared for this. I think, again, it probably comes down to a lot of other sort of tech pieces in that sideboard, in terms of you probably end up with maybe a lot of one-offs, and maybe shoring up some extra things. So maybe like an extra cape, maybe like extra Genkais, maybe an extra condescending, maybe some decoy duplicates, maybe another Masho if that comes aboard, and almost certainly another Spooky, maybe more Can't Escape Me's. But yeah, there's a lot I think you can do with this, and I think there's a lot of stuff you can play around with the attack lineup. Like, I think at least 3 of these are set in stone. I think at least 3 of these are set in stone. I think 4 of these are set in stone. I think at least 2 of these are set in stone, and I think you almost certainly want to play at least 3 of these. And then there's just a lot of other slots that I think you could play around with different options in. But yes, this is Void Rodan. It's absolutely the deck I'd be running at my local qualifier if I didn't have to go to a birthday party, sadly. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with the games I've had with this deck, and I think it's very, very powerful. And yeah, certainly from a competitive standpoint, this would be the deck I'd be working on. Like, there'd be nothing else. So yeah, this is the deck. Obviously, let me know in the comments, Discord, however you want to. Let me know your thoughts, any changes you would make, any cards I've missed, whether that's assets, actions, foundations, attacks, what have you. Any cards you think I've got in here that definitely shouldn't be, that I haven't already talked about. But yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'm always happy to hear other people's feedback. So yeah, as usual, thanks very much for watching along. Come check us out on Twitch, usually every Sunday, sometimes on Tuesday, for the Universus podcast. Do the old like, comment, and subscribe on everything. It really helps the channel, really helps the videos. And yeah, just let us know any feedback you have. Thanks very much.